Welcome to the Blade Files. How's it going, guys? It's your boy Ice with Cosplay. So coming up today, we're going to do a Skype interview with my good friend Raymond Ramos. Now, I'm super excited about this because I've wanted to actually talk to this guy for quite a long time. We've chatted a fair bit over Facebook, but when I was researching doing my blade build, and definitely a huge part into it, I did a bit of research on blade cosplays, and there's not really a lot out there build wise. Like a fair few people have maybe bought theirs, but the people that have built theirs haven't really documented it anywhere that I could find. And I ended up coming across a video on YouTube of this guy Raymond Ramos dressed as virtually one of the deadliest blades I've ever seen. So I did a little bit of stalking on Facebook, and I ended up finding him. So we've become friends over that time, and yeah, as soon as I started the interview thing, I knew I somehow was going to find a way to interview him. So we found some software to record Skype interviews, and we're going to get onto that today. So here's my interview with my good friend Raymond Ramos. Check it out. Okay, guys, so like I was super excited to say, today we've got my very good friend Raymond Ramos, and we're going to do an interview with him on his cosplays and what he likes about it. So, like always, we'll just jump straight to it. Mr. Ramos, how long have you been cosplaying for, and how did you get started?
Oh, let's see. Where do I begin? I'm a martial artist, first and foremost. I love movies, and Blade was always one of my favorite movies. And I told myself if I was ever to get a sword to hang up in my house, you know, because at that time there was a lot of people that were just they were hanging up their katana swords. It was like the biggest fad, you know. Everybody had a katana sword in the house, and I was like, you know what, I'm gonna hold off until I find the sword that I want. And I told myself if I ever found a sword, you know, to hang up, it would be the blade sword. So, being a martial artist, I'm always going to the martial arts stores here and there. And I just happened to go to a store in the Taunton Galleria Mall. And it was an Asian store, and they have a lot of cool stuff in there. And there it was, right there, the blade sword. And I was like, yes! So, my son's mother got that for me for Christmas that year, and I was so excited about it. I was like, oh man, and I was looking at it, and it had a harness that came with it with the sheath and everything, and I was like, oh, you could wear this. I was like, you know what would really be cool if I could make a costume to go around the sword for Halloween at my job, because they allowed us to dress up at Halloween at where I work. So I threw something together really quickly, and it doesn't look anywhere near where my finished product is now. But I think I dressed up for Blade for 2007. I'll never forget that year because that's the year my son was born. And I actually left the hospital real quick because I had got the job to set up basically a costume contest that year. You know, and I wasn't expecting the delivery date to be so close to where Halloween was. So, thank God my son wasn't born on Halloween. That's a good one. But it was close enough. So my son was born, and I went to my job, and I had my costume on, and I took some pictures for the contest, and then I went back to the hospital. So that was pretty much the first time I ever donned the Daywalker attire. And it was cool, you know. People really got a kick out of the costume. They knew who I was automatically, so that was really cool. And after that, I think the year after that, I did a couple upgrades, and I believe I might have actually found a trench coat at a thrift store, which I modified and wore the following year. And I was like really excited about it because I'm like, all the pieces are starting to come together. So, like I said, getting back to being a martial artist, my martial art teacher had a former student who was putting together a local comic show, toy and comic show in our local area. And he said, hey, he might be interested in having you, you know, go there as Blade. And I was like, yeah, that'd be cool. So I got in touch with my friend, Steve Perry. And he said, yeah, sure, come on. We'd love to have you. And he was like, yeah, we're supposed to have a couple other people, the 501st, the, you know, Star Wars Legion guys, they were supposed to show, and a couple other people. So I was all super excited. The year was probably, I want to say maybe 2010, 2009. So I went to the show right here. There you go. South Coast. Shameless plug. Yeah. And believe it or not, I was the only person in costume who showed up. Somehow something happened and the 501st and other people weren't able to show. So I actually was this local convention's first cosplayer. I didn't know what cosplay was at that time. All I knew that I was like, I liked dressing up as Blade. And this was an excuse for me to, you know, to go and wear this costume that I've been working so hard on. And I just fell in love with it, I guess you could say. It was because it was like, hey, I don't really like to celebrate Halloween, you know, but I like the excuse to dress up. So when I found out I could go to these conventions, I was like, okay, well, you know, I don't have to worry about Halloween anymore because, you know, these places are cooler and you could be there the whole day and there's a whole lot of awesome stuff.
It's super cool. That's super cool. So, like, has the love of cosplaying as Blade lessened since that day, or it's pretty much stayed the same for you?
It stayed the same. Blade will always be my first cosplay. Blade would always be, I want to say, one of my favorite cosplays. Like I said, being that I'm a martial artist, it was just, and I used to like the old vampire films, so they took a whole lot of awesome and created something unique. And being that Wesley Snipes, I think, had a major part to deal with the whole production part of that, you know, bringing Blade to life, and him also being a martial artist, it was just, you know, really awesome to like get that vibe, and people felt it and people understood and knew exactly who I was. There were a couple of people at times that thought I was Morpheus from The Matrix, but, you know, that's another story.
Yeah. So, what was it about cosplay that initially pulled you in? Like, once you realized what it was and what you could do with it?
The attention was really cool. You know, it was like people, you could dress up other than Halloween, and the attention was always positive because people were just really impressed with the costumes, and it was like a hand in a glove. Those two pieces just fit together so right. You know, it was like, okay, well, I could dress up at the show as Blade, and people want to take pictures with you. People are saying, oh, that's an awesome costume. You know, people are giving you a boost in confidence on yourself and the abilities and your artistic abilities that it goes into making those costumes.
Do you find it validating of the work that you've put into your cosplays when people come to you with the good comments and the requests for photos that they do?
Oh, definitely. I mean, every time I get a compliment, you know, I'm just so humbled and honored that these people took the time to stop, you know, admire my work, ask for a photo. I mean, that's really, I mean, the first time somebody asked to take a picture with me, I was like really just blown away, and it hasn't stopped, and I love it. It's like you're almost addicted to the joy that you can give somebody else, and you know, that also likes that character so much, and it's like you see them so excited about, you know, what you're wearing, and it's like, you know, it's like no feeling you could put into words. It's just that awesome. and epic.
I totally get you on that. What is cosplay really about for you?
Well, cosplay for me is the expression of yourself, expression of a character you enjoy, or a character you look up to, or the work that you put into to make a certain character and to become that character, and go out, strut your stuff, let people see what you've done, let people enjoy and share with your excitement for whatever costume it is.
It's totally evident too. What are your main motivations behind the cosplays that you've done?
Well, okay, the motivations basically are, Blade. That was the first one. So it was like, okay, I want to do better. That was the motivation. I looking at the character and being like, I could have added this. I think I could tweak it here, or I could tweak it there. And let me see what I could do. I don't know how it's going to turn out, but I'm going to take a chance and see how it goes.
How much do you like to embody the character that you cosplay, and is it all about becoming the character for the day for you?
Oh, definitely. I immerse myself in that character, because you are on the level like a local kind of celebrity per se, because now you are not just yourself, but you're a character that is most likely very popular in the culture. So you become that character. So you just put yourself into that character, and it's almost like you're an actor, and your cosplay is the role, and you just immerse yourself into that character, become the character, and just enjoy the fans' reactions.
Do you find, like, if, say, children at a con, or even adults at a con, come up and approach you and say, hey, cool costume, or can I get a photo, and you turn around and you do the Blade voice, or whatever cosplay character, they completely react to it?
Oh, yeah. There are a few other cosplays that I have, and I've done, and they're either just like their mouth might open up and they're just be in awe, and they'll be like, wow, that's a cool costume. Do you mind if I get a picture? And sometimes they're really like apprehensive because they don't know how you're going to react. But to tell you the truth, most people that are in costume and cosplayers at a show, they want fan interaction. So there's no like, okay, well, you know what? You're bothering me. No, I'm not going to stop and take a picture for you. But yeah, thanks for the compliment, but I'm not taking a picture. That doesn't happen, and if it does, it's rare, and that's a shame. But I know when it comes to me, I stop for every single fan that asks me for a picture, unless I got to run to the bathroom, fly to the bathroom or something like that, but I'll say, I got to run real quick. I'll be right back. I will take that picture, or I'll just stop and take a picture.
That's super awesome, right? How much does your love of cosplay affect your life outside of it?
Well, it's definitely given me a little bit more notoriety. People have actually seen me, or pictures of me on other social medias, and it just more people know who I am now from cosplaying than I think they did before, because I'm pretty well known for my artistic ability within my own city, but doing the cosplay, I've been to Boston, I've been to Providence, Rhode Island, I've been to New York, and different conventions there, and so people have gotten to see me at these other locations, and all these pictures are being taken, and they're going out on the social media, and people like yourself have actually been able to see my pictures on whether or not it's Twitter or let's see, Facebook, and a couple other of the other social medias.
How do your friends and family view your love of cosplay?
Well, I've never had a negative response. I've never had a negative reaction. Everybody that I know that has gotten in touch with me and that has seen my cosplay, love it. They say, hey, we've been following your work on Facebook. We love what you're doing. That's so awesome. I know my mother, she just gets blown away every time she sees one of the costumes that I do. Friends and family, they really just, I guess, really love and appreciate, the stuff that I do. And it's funny because you would think you might get some people that would make fun of you, say you're a grown man. Why are you dressing up in costumes? It's not like that anymore because cosplay is now part of social culture that it's a lot more acceptable now. I mean, like I said, a few years back, I didn't know what more than a few years, like 10 or so, I didn't know what cosplay was. If I had known what cosplay was, I would have done it a whole lot sooner. But, people, as just an all genuine positive reaction and toward what we're doing.
That's cool. When you choose a character to cosplay, is it based on the difficulty of the build you envision as like a way to challenge yourself, or is it more a character you know and like and sort of, find relatable things with?
Okay, well, with that one, let's see. We all know I have Blade, but my second one was Bane from The Dark Knight Rises. And with that one, I have a friend who dresses up as Batman, matches Malone, one of the best Batmans that I know out there. And we have done photo shoots together, but most of the time it was always Blade and Batman. And I just wanted to, after a couple of years, I was like, okay, people had said, well, why don't you do, a couple other costumes? And I'm like, oh, I'm all set. I don't need to have 100 costumes. I'm all set with Blade. And, but after a while with the photo shoots, I was like, you know what? I would really like to do something to go hand in hand with Matches's Batman costume. So I thought about it and I was like, okay, well, who could I do as a character? I mean, and people, the choices weren't all that. I wasn't going to do the Joker. I wasn't going to do Two-Face or something like that. And being that the Dark Knight Rises movie had recently come out, I was like, you know what? I like that movie. And I think I would like to try to do the Bane. I could have went and did the easier Bane with the regular mask that he had, but I was like, there was a difficulty factor here, which, yes, intrigued me to wonder if I could pull this off. And I was like, now how am I going to do this? And when you get like that and get to that point, it's like, okay, well, I have no clue how I'm going to do this absolutely whatsoever. So I had a friend, Nicole Marine Jean, who did a Lady Bane. So I tried to look at a couple of her pictures and see, okay, well, how does she do this? What does she use for materials? I didn't get too many pictures off of ideas from her cosplay as much. So I went to the next best thing, which is YouTube. YouTube is like the best resource. So I went and I found a lot of people who were working on the same thing, and I got different ideas of how it could be done. And I just said, okay, well, certain things I can't do, certain things I might be able to do. So I just said, okay, you know what? I'm just going to wing it. I'll take whatever ideas that I saw, and I'm just going to just go with it, and let's just see where it takes me.
Do you find like when you're starting on a new cosplay and you're not sure about what your starting point should be, do you just and you're not sure about how you're going to build it either, do you just start on one thing and then build out from that one point, or do you do you approach it with a plan on how you're going to go?
Yeah, well, like with the Bane costume, I was like, okay, well, I'm just gonna start with the mask, how I'm gonna tackle the mask. So that was the first thing that I did, and I actually went to the store. I went to Home Depot, bought myself a respirator, a dust mask respirator, and I used that for a base. And I just started adding all types of some 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 foamy sheets, craft foam sheets, and some leather for bases, and more foam sheets, and found some really good tubing, and I used that, and just pieced it together, bit by bit.
Cool. Are there certain websites, like obviously YouTube and Googling stuff, are there certain websites you use for advice, etc., when you start a new cosplay, or do you just pick a project that you want to do and get to work with your own skills?
Well, it's the first thing you want to always do is always find reference pictures. So it's either Google to find images of whatever it is that you're trying to do. Like, let's see, when doing the blade vest, I put in on Google search, blade pictures, Wesley Snipes blade pictures, and I just looked through pretty much as many pictures as there were, and whatever I saw that looked like a good angle of what I was that I wanted to build, I would save that picture to my phone. So I would just keep going through pictures and scrolling through pictures until I found different angles, because obviously you're just not going to have the front. So I needed to be able to see side views and rear views. And once you have all that, then you could actually start, thinking about, okay, how do you want to approach this? What materials you might need? Like I said, for the videos, for the Bane mask, there were a couple of tutorials that were on there that were kind of helpful in that process. So, yeah, you always want to find those reference pictures first, and that's going to be the base for you your start point. Because if you don't want to just go blindly into it, because you always need a picture. It's either because okay, it's either you're going to do a totally original adaptation to whatever it is that character you're going to do and just do whatever you want, or you're going to try to get it as close to whether it's an anime or a movie that you can get.
What techniques do you use build-wise, and which do you favour? Like, do you mostly work with foam, or you prefer to say your costumes, or like a mix of many styles?
Well, if you're going to be a cosplayer, most cosplayers try to be as rounded as they can. It's always a learning process. I'm still learning certain techniques, and I was given a lot of helpful advice by a friend, Da Vinci, who does some phenomenal foam work. So he gave me some advice, and I always, like to use foam. Definitely. I like to sew. If I can, I prefer sewing. Because sometimes working with the foam, if you don't know exactly what you're doing, sometimes putting Velcro, we're just gonna say it. The Velcro with making attachment points sometimes is a little tricky with foam, because you got to find the right adhesive to really bond the Velcro. I've learned that using hot glue on Velcro, it works, but if it's really close to your body, whatever that part is, your body heat is gonna soften that Velcro or the hot glue, and it will actually, over the course of the time you're wearing it, will pull apart if it's not a really good bond. So you gotta find really good glues or adhesives for that. I prefer the sewing because you could stitch your Velcro on and it's never going to go anywhere. Yeah. So it's a combination of everything. I've worked with foam, I've worked with cloth, I've worked with leather. I'm looking forward to learning how to do some sculpting and casting and electrical stuff in the near future.
It's pretty plain to see that you pay attention to detail in a huge way with your cosplays. Was this something that you built up over time in your builds, or was it something that you knew you wanted to start with and keep going as you gain more experience in cosplay?
Well, I'm an artist as well, you know, martial artist, regular artist. I've been drawing since I was like 5. So I've always had a really eye for detail. I was always very detail oriented. When I was younger, my mother said I drew a picture of her washing dishes, and I got like every single little thing that was in that room. And it wasn't the greatest picture because I saw it years later, but but everything that was in the room was there. So I've always had an eye for detail. When I did my first Blade costume, like I said, there were certain things that I wish I would have added, you know, at that time. But I was like, okay, you know what? There's always room to grow. There's always room for advancement and upgrading. So as it would go, I would be like, okay, well, this is what I want to add. I want to change this. And I've actually made a second vest after that because I really didn't want to, you know, chance screwing up what I had, even though it wasn't all that, you know, all that impressive, but I liked it and I didn't want to take a chance. So I just went and built a whole new vest, you know, because I've already did it once. So once you've already done it once, you know, the second time it's a little easier. You have a better idea of what you're doing and you have room to add those particular parts that you might not have had in the previous version.
What are your favorite cosplays to date? Like either yours or someone else's or both?
Wow, that one's tough because I've seen crazy cosplays, and I have to right now give you credit for your first cosplay, which you did an outstanding job at. I was blown away. Yours blew my first attempt away. I just want to say that right now. Your first attempt blew mine away. So I want to give you credit on that and give you your props.
Thank you. Obviously, for me, as I've told a million people, that was pretty much greatly accredited to you and your advice, and obviously greatly your mentorship through that whole build was greatly appreciated. What would you call essential tools for cosplay building, as well as, say, dream tools that not everybody does or can have, but if you could have, would certainly help in a big way?
Okay. The basic tools that I like to use, and most cosplayers will use, is a heat gun, and you have to have plenty of knives, X-Acto knives or whatever it is, if you're going to work with foam. A Dremel tool is always very, very handy, and glue gun, a high temperature glue gun. You know, they have different temperature glue guns, and everybody that I've talked to really endorses a high temperature heat glue gun because the higher the temperature is a better bond with the foam. I've added other pieces of equipment like saws and sanders. Belt sander is always good. A skill saw or something of that nature, a bandsaw is really good for other type of things you might be working on, like accessories. Like I used it for the bullet clips on my Blade vest, or you know, or the wings on my Guy King costume. So you know, if it seems like Tim Allen had a show years ago, like Home Improvements. Men just like tools. The more tools you have, the better that you could do whatever it is that you're gonna make. So, you know, if you have the right tool, you could do any job.
Indeed. How do you deal with the cosplay build blues when you just can't seem to get anything going?
I look to Facebook and I look at what other people are doing, and it's that social media is almost, it helps other people to inspire other people. So I've had people who have inspired me with their builds. You have actually also inspired me to upgrade on my Blade costume where I thought I was done with it. You were working on the pair of the EDTDA darts, the injectable darts for Blade on his arm, and you had a design that I hadn't thought about. So when I saw images of your work, I was like, wow, it made me start thinking, and I was like, you know what? I would really like to upgrade the darts that I made, and I didn't think about taking this approach. So being cosplayers, if we share our builds, some of them will, some cosplayers will, others like to keep theirs, top secret until it's time to reveal it at a show or something like that. Me, on the other hand, I always like to share whatever it is that I'm doing, because it's not that I'm trying to brag about, hey, everybody, look what I'm making, but it's about, I want to share what I'm making, let people see what I'm making, and hopefully give some people that might be doing something similar ideas about how to attack something, or about how to go a particular way on something if they're being, if they're having troubleshooting. Okay, well, how do I do this? And they're stuck, and they'd be like, oh, well, look what he's doing, and look how he's doing it. That works. Yeah, that works. I'm going to try to do that. And I might look at somebody's stuff and say, yeah, that, it gives you an idea, and then it gets you going. It's like, yeah, man, that's how I'm going to do it. I got to do it. All right, let me go out. Now you're going out, running out, buying your equipment, you're buying your materials, and you're like, you're all in it.
Sort of along the line with that, like, that's obviously one of the great things about the cosplay community is it's really helpful. It's definitely one of the most positive environments I've been in. What are your favorite aspects of the cosplay community in general?
The camaraderie, the family unit. I'm going to go online and say a quote from my twin, Fred Holt, that cosplay is a universal family. We're all doing pretty much the same thing, and we all lift each other up. And that's what I like to do. I like to take people and I like to lift them up. And say somebody went and bought their costume at a Walmart. You know what? They had the guts to go out in public wearing a costume. It's all good to me. It doesn't matter if they made it or if they bought it. The fact is, if you're gonna put some type of effort into it, that's awesome. I totally endorse that. The people who make their stuff, it's just mind blowing, and they get all the credit in the world. But I also give the ones who just decide, I'm just gonna, put this costume on and I'm gonna go to one of these shows. I give them all the credit in the world too. It's a universal family, and one is supposed to lift the other up and maybe say, okay, you know what? I think I'm gonna try to improve here or improve there. I know some people who have done one costume, and once they were around, the cosplay community, the cosplay family, they were like, you know what? It got me going, and I'm going to try to do a little better version. And that's what it's really all about.
That's cool. That's cool. What tips do you have for budding cosplayers beginning their journey into costuming?
Research. Research is always key. If you're gonna do a cosplay or a character, just do some research on them. Find as many pictures as you can. Reference pictures, like I said, are very important, because they're going to give you those little details, and the details, that's where it's at when you get those little details, because believe it or not, fans will notice. They will notice those little details. They'll be like, wow, look, you got that, and he's got that, and, I didn't even, wow, he's got that one too. And they actually look for it, and they really appreciate the work that somebody will put into to get those little details.
Yeah, definitely noticed that. Cosplay-wise, who are your greatest inspirations locally or even abroad?
Okay, that's a big list. Um, while I was cosplaying, the first real relationship that I established with cosplayers was with McDaniel McLeod, who does Mr. T. He also does Chef from South Park, and Barrett from, I think, Final Fantasy VII. He's working on a Thor-based costume right now. So he was always an inspiration to me. And then there was Matches. Seeing Matches' costume, his Dark Knight costume, that was very inspiring. It was like I was in awe when I saw it, and I still, every time I see the costume, I'm in awe. And he made that costume himself, so it blows me away every time I see it. Uh, when it came to Blades, I had never seen another Blade cosplay. Um, I thought I would. I went to the Boston Comic Con, and I was expecting to run into a couple of Blades, and I never did. Uh, I happened to see some photos of a couple of Blades, and there were two of them. There were two of them together in a group photo, and my martial art teacher actually, I guess, tagged me in this photo. It was the League of Hot Geeks or something like that. And from that, I found a photo of some phenomenal cosplayers, and two of them were Blades, and I had like never seen them. And ironically, I ended up friending one of the Blades. I don't know how we got into contact, but I ended up friending one of the Blades. And then his friend that was Blade, the other Blade in the picture, saw a picture of me and tracked me down. And the funny thing is, I was already friends with his friend. So, you know, he tracked me down, and we ended up being friends also. And he was about to hang up the sword. He was almost done with cosplay. He was at that point, he was like, I'm pretty much all set. And I guess I inspired him because he saw the picture of me somewhere and was like, I need to team up with this guy. I can't stop. I can't hang it up. I got to team up with this guy before I'm done. And he tracked me down. He tracked me down on Facebook, and we've been friends ever since. We actually went to the New York Comic Con together. We met up there, and we went over there, and we rocked the Big Apple, man. As you know, as the Blade Brotherhood, we rocked the Blade Brotherhood to the fullest at New York. But they're friends of the Blades, as in Eric the Smoke Moran, who he has probably some of the most crazy costumes in a lot of them. He's got cosplay for days. He was also the host on the sci-fi show Heroes of Cosplay. He did the costume contest for that. He inspires me. There's Wendell, my boy Wendell, he inspires me. Mike Mason, he inspires me. My boy Thomas, who builds these really big robots, and Bumblebee, I mean, crazy. He inspires me. Mostly everybody that I know in the cosplay community inspires me, because you see what they're working on, you see what they're putting into, and they're putting their whole effort into that. And I gotta have to say, my friend James, who does Deadpool, inspires me. You inspired me, you know. So it all depends. Cosplayers, I think we all inspire each other to some degree, because people have said I've inspired them. So in turn, that's why I like to share as many photos as I can, because I hope that I can inspire somebody else.
I can definitely vouch for that, because when I started, well, when I had the idea that I was going to do a Blade cosplay, and I did some research on it, I found it quite hard, sort of looking for people that had done it before. I'd sort of seen a couple that had bought their costumes, but like that wasn't really a good base for me, sort of thing. But do you think you found that, obviously, with the making of the Blade Brotherhood and finding two other Blades, do you think the popularity of Blade as a cosplay has come back since you and the two other guys have been out there doing it once more?
Well, it once I friended Mike Mason and Fred Holt, I come to find out that they had friends who also dressed as Blade. And there's a Mike Tate who did Blade, and a Victor Law who did Blade, and an Al Smith. And these were pretty much the first cosplayers that did Blade. And so I saw all these Blades, and I was like, you know what? We need to have a page on Facebook ourselves. We need to have a collective. And that's how the Blade Brotherhood came to be. I was like, you know, now that I know there are other Blades out there, I want to start something where we could all come together. We could all share our different versions of Blade or accuracies of Blade in one unit. And it started off with Fred, Mike, and myself, and then I added all these other people, and it was like they were like, I would like to believe they were like, yeah, a place where Blade is being the focal on the group. And it's just blown up because we've added so many different Blades, and we keep the Blade franchise going because it a lot of people forget that Blade was Marvel's first really popular movie, live action movie that did really well. It was out before The Matrix. It had special effects that were done in this particular movie that were done before The Matrix even came out, with the slow motion action and everything like that. And a lot of people forget about that. So we want to keep that going. And Blade, you know, they had the 3 movies, and then it hasn't, you know, it lulled for a little bit, but we kept it going. Then they came up with the Blade television series, so that helped. And that series actually gave me the motivation to fully go out with and do the Blade thing, because he had a bald look. It was bald, and I was like, I didn't really want to wear a wig to do Blade. You know, my hairline was gone at that time, so I was like, you know what? They did a bald version of Blade, and that was awesome. And Fred Holt, he actually does the cosplay from that TV series. Me, I'm more of a combination of the original first Blade with the look of Sticky Fingers, who played Blade in the TV series. And like I said, we just came together, and this is a place where we're still bringing in brothers. You know, you yourself recently was added to the, which you can see right in the background, the Blade Brother.
Yeah, it is right there. Yeah.
So it's an awesome place, and we all share. They share all of their pictures that, you know, of Blade experiences and meeting different celebrities that might have been involved with the Blade franchises. And I'm hoping one day, this is my goal, to meet Wesley Snipes. I think that if you're a Blade cosplayer, that would be one of the main goals, is to meet the man, Wesley Snipes, who basically laid the foundation for all of us cosplayers to do Blade.
Indeed. Given your local con is your typical event for cosplaying, is your main reason to attend a convention, or do you like the panels and the special guests, or is it just about catching up with friends for you?
Well, to tell you the truth, I think I've only been to one panel since I've been doing cosplay. I really get engulfed with just being in character and walking around and taking pictures with the fans. That's always been my main, you know, the main thing I really enjoy. I mean, just interacting with the fans. It was just recently that I was able to attend a panel for Michael Jai White when he was at the Rhode Island Comic Convention in Providence, Rhode Island. And Kane, the wrestler Kane, he did a panel. And I think those are the only 2 panels that I've actually ever attended. Everything else is taking the pictures with the fans, running into your fellow cosplayers and getting to hang out, take pictures with them, and just have an all out awesome epic time.
Because you've obviously recently you've also emceed an event as well as judged an event too. How did you find that?
Well, being that I usually do Blade and I'm so serious at it, or Bane or something like that, it was fun. It was like a last minute thing, and they needed an MC. The usual MC wasn't able to attend that event that time. So I was like, okay, well, I'll do it. And I just decided, okay, I'm gonna break character here, and I'm just gonna do my thing, and I'm just gonna act silly, and just give the crowd a good show. So it was just fun. It made a lot of people laugh. Unfortunately, I decided to do the Running Man on stage, and something happened. My blade gun fell out of my holster. It hit the floor, rolled off, hit off the stage, landed on the floor, and broke in half.
I did see that photo. That was the facial expression on that photo. Pretty much just said it all.
Sad day, but it was okay because I had some good glue, and I was able to repair it for the time being.
What tips do you have on attending a con in cosplay, like prep-wise, lasting the day, good photo etiquette?
Whoo, that's a tough one right there. Because when you go to a show, it's always recommended that you wear your cosplay for at least an hour or so, maybe even longer in your house. I know this sounds kind of funny, but you want to wear it in your house, and you want to walk around for a while. You want to let your body heat adjust to whatever the costume is that you're wearing, because that's the best way that you're going to find out whether or not something's going to fall off, or if something needs to be reinforced, or if you're going to need to strengthen something somewhere. I've learned that the hard way at some events. Some people will actually bring a repair kit. It's always a good idea to maybe bring a repair kit, whether it's your glue gun, or another type of form of adhesive, or even the heat gun with you, and be able to store it somewhere. Because I had an issue with my Guy King costume where the Velcro, the glue on the hot glue and the Velcro, just when I pulled the Velcro off, the other strip of Velcro came off with it. Luckily, I had the heat gun, so what I did is I just heated up the glue again and then just stuck it back on, and it lasted for what I needed it to. So if you're gonna go to a show, it's always good to have a repair kit if you're in costume. Have an idea of what you want to do, because like me, I'm just the type of person, I get there, I just walk around, most times I don't know who's there, as in celebrity wise, or panel wise. So if you're going to really get the most out of the enjoyment of the whole convention, if you're in cosplay, it's good to know what guests will be there, where they're located, what time their panels are going to be. That way, you're able to just enjoy the full awesomeness of whatever convention it is that you're going to.
What was the first con you went to, as well as your favorite con to date?
The first convention I went to was the local one here in it was right down the street from my house, down the road, in Fairhaven, Massachusetts. It was the South Coast Toy and Comic Show. Okay. And like I said, being that I was the first cosplayer there, it that meant a lot to me. And I've been going to those shows pretty much every year that they do it. And I might have missed 1 year. I might have missed like the second show that they did. But when I went back on the third show, it had grown. There were like 10, maybe 15 cosplayers there. It had just grown. And since then they've done other shows, and now they've actually expanded, and now they have a bigger show, which is the Rhode Island Comic Convention, and they've also done another one that's the Terracon Convention. And so, you know, I love Boston, and New York was awesome, but that show is basically where my heart is. You know, that's gonna be my favorite show because it's local, it's the people I started with, and to see it grow to where it is now, I think they're like either second or third largest convention in this area. And so I'm just so proud to had been the first cosplayer, you know, with them in that circle. And now to see it where it is now, they have all types of guests coming in, and it's just an amazing show now. They put on, it was so big that they've had to expand, and they're going to utilize other areas of the convention centers because it was that many people that showed up. Boston is another favorite for me because that was where I debuted Bane, and I reluctantly got talked into doing the costume contest for that show. I had no plans at all when I went there to even be involved because I never really did well with the contests, I found. But somebody really talked me into it and said, come on, man, you have to do this contest. Look, the registration table is right behind you. I turned around and there it was. And I was like, you know what? Okay, whatever. I'll do it for kicks and giggles. And the funny thing is, while we were waiting to go on stage, I could hear people talking about my cosplay with the cosplayers themselves. And I was like, wow, they knew who I was. They knew that I had done Blade. And they said, yeah, that guy, also has a really awesome Blade cosplay. And I overheard them. I don't know if they knew that I overheard them, but I was like, wow, that was really cool. And at the end of the night, I ended up walking away with first place out of the show. So Boston, is my first win in a convention. So that has a special place in my heart. Then it would have to be New York Comic Con, because that's where me and my twin, Fred Holt, we met up for the first time. And that was the first time members of the Blade Brotherhood had actually come together to represent and go to a convention.
That's super. We're actually going to get to your award-winning cosplays really soon. Best and worst experiences at a con?
I just focus on the best.
Yep.
I think the worst experience I had at a con was last year when I debuted Guy King for Rhode Island Comic Con, because during the process of putting the costume on, I ripped the whole bicep portion and literally putting my hand in it. I had a friend helping me on putting it on. She was pulling the part up. I was pushing down. I went down too far, and I ripped the foam all the way down the center and started to freak. But my friend, she stayed cool and calm. My friend Alan, and she helped me get the piece repaired enough that I could continue walking around the show. So that was for me, the worst thing that happened at a convention, because it's like nobody wants their costume to totally have a serious wardrobe malfunction and rip or be damaged. But the best, I would have to say, almost every convention is best for me, because just being, like I said, around the fans, getting the fans' reactions, being around my fellow cosplayers, getting to see them and hang out with them. And it's really awesome to be around a lot of like-minded people that are interested in the same things that you are and can appreciate the same things that you appreciate and can appreciate your costume. You can appreciate theirs. That's the best part for me.
Cool. You've competed in cosplay comps before and been a winner of a few awards also. Can you give us a rundown of your award-winning cosplays and the win you felt the most deserving
Okay, well, like I said, the first one that I won, and that's been my only first place. So that's why it's so special. Was the debut of Bane at the Boston Comic Con. Uh, Last year, I came in best anime for another costume that I had debuted, which was my Guy King cosplay, which is this one right here that you can see in the background. Um, and it's just, I don't go to conventions basically like just all gung ho about the contest, because I've never really had really great luck with contests. So being the fact that I reluctantly entered a contest and came away first place out of what, 70 something people that were in the Boston Con costume contest, like 75 or so. There were, there was a lot of cosplayers, and a lot of them had some really outstanding cosplays. I mean, they were very impressive. And just the simple fact that the judges really, really enjoyed my costume and saw the work that I put into it and appreciated the work that I had put into it. One of the judges that was at Boston that year was Yaya Han, and I got to actually, talk with her a little bit about my costume. And what I didn't know is that she was going to be a judge. I had no clue whatsoever that she was going to be one of the judges in the contest. Like I said, I didn't plan on doing the contest in the first place. So apparently they were taking pictures of everybody in costume, and they were showing them to the judges well before the show even, the contest even happened. So that was my first win. And like I said, last year I came in, won best anime character for Guy King. So it's, I don't do too many contests, but it's always great when, it's awesome when you win, but it's still awesome just to be involved with a contest, really, because you're showing people, okay, this is what I've done, and you're letting a major group of people, cosplayers and the fans of cosplay, actually see your work, and it kind of highlights you as a cosplayer, and it's like, okay, well, look, here I am. This is what I've done, and I'm gonna own it as best I can. And when you put a lot of attitude in your costumes, they love that. When you embody that character, they love that. So, will I do more costume contests? Maybe. Right now, I don't really feel the need to. I don't feel like I have, because the competition has skyrocketed. I think there was well over 100 applicants, well over 100, maybe even 150. I'm pushing maybe 200 for Rhode Island. And the wait was really long to go on stage, and then for everybody else to be seen. So I don't know if I plan on doing any more right now. I have some secret ideas that I want to work on, and when I do that particular cosplay, then maybe I'll enter another one. But right now, the last costume I made was Luke Cage from Heroes for Hire, Power Man, So, but the competition is stiff now. So it's like, if you're gonna do a costume contest, you want to make sure that you're bringing your A game. And like I said, the materials have changed. The costumes have changed. People are using 3D printers to make mind-blowing things. But then you still have your old school guys who are still just using, your foam, or some people are casting, so there's a lot of different costumes with different materials, and they're truly amazing. I mean, so right now I'm good for a costume contest right now. I'm good.
Okay. It's certainly not unheard of that cosplayers are typically quite shy people. What advice or tips can you offer someone wanting to try their hand at competing in a cosplay
Okay, well, for me, I've never found myself shy, like per se. Maybe if it's approaching an extremely attractive woman, maybe I'll be a little apprehensive. But when it comes to being a goof,
competition?
I've never had a problem with that. I was like the class clown growing up, one of them anyway. So, and as I got older, I did different things with public speaking. So for me, it wasn't a real issue with being in front of people like that. So if I was going to say any advice for anybody else that is trying to do this for the first time, a convention is the best place for you. I mean, your acceptance rate is like 99.9%. You can't get any better than that. People love to see people in costumes at a show. That's one of the highlights for the fans that are there. Is they want to go see the panels. They want to see the artists. They want to see the vendors. They want to see the celebrities. And they want to see the people in costume. So there's no fear. There should be no fear in going to a convention because you're automatically accepted, and people are gonna like what you're doing. So this shouldn't be. I know a lot of people be like, "Oh, well, this is my first time. I'm a little nervous." There's really nothing to really be nervous about because most times people are just gonna be like, "That's awesome. Do you mind if I take a picture?"
Now that you've obviously won a first place, won a best anime, you've MC'd events, and you've judged competitions, what is there left for Raymond Ramos Cosplay to achieve?
I wouldn't mind winning a few more. I think anybody would want to win a few more. Just to get that notoriety. I would really like the people to know who I am and the work that I do. I would really like to get into this more professionally at some point, because there's not a lot of male cosplayers that are being, a lot of attention is on. And, most of all the attention is mostly on the women, but you can't fault that because, women are beautiful. So, but, I think there are a lot more, there's a lot of men out there that are phenomenal builders. They're phenomenal cosplayers, and not all of them are getting, recognition that I think that, some of the male cosplayers deserve. The focus has always been on the women, but there are a few men that are out there like Eric Moran, Spencer Doe, Night Mage, Michael Wilson. These people are out there and they're getting their name out there, and Matches Malone, McDaniel, McLeod, they're getting their names out there. But I would like to be on that stage, with them. I would like to try to elevate the male cosplay, momentum as much as I could. Whether it happens or not, not really sure, but I'm going to try my best just to do the best work that I can and just pray that, it will take off in its due time, and that people will just really, be like, yeah, Raymond Ramos, he's one of the good ones to look out for.
Well, it's definitely what I say. I mean, New Zealand isn't a big place, but like you already know, I say your name every chance I get. Are there any cosplay projects you have in mind for the future, but they're different to the methods that you'd use, like obviously with the casting and sculpting, or like you just haven't gotten around to attempting but are keeping in mind?
Well, some of the secret, costumes. I would like to do some stuff on stilts eventually. stilts seem to be that when you're on a costume that's on stilts, it's, you know, people really take notice about that. And the last few wins from the last contest were pretty much costumes on stilts. So I would like to try to see my hand at, you know, doing a costume with a stilt format. That's pretty much it.
Okay, well, that pretty much wraps up our interview, Mr. Aylesford. Thank you so much for joining us on the cutting edge of NZ cosplay, and obviously me and many other people are looking forward to the next cosplay that you do.
Thank you.
All right, that's us, guys. We're going to leave it at that. I'm going to get to work on editing this because I'm super excited about getting it out there, but that's us. Episode 7 of The Blade Files. We're out.